Hello class, today we are going to talk about angle constructions. In the previous video we did constructions of segments. We created congruent segments and then we did a perpendicular bisector for segments. Today we're going to do that with angles. Okay, now remember these are constructions, which means only thing we're allowed to use is the compass to draw circles and something for a straight edge. But remember, no measuring is allowed, so a ruler isn't the best thing. Best to just use a piece of paper or something else that doesn't have any measurements on it, and so we can just get a straight line. So again, I'm going to be doing this in Delta Math because that's the software we'll be using in class. So what I want to do, I want to copy this angle over here to P prime. Alright, so I'm going to take angle P, copy it over to P prime. Step one, draw a ray. All right. Anytime you're doing a construction, you're going to need some kind of ray. This is the foundation for everything you build on. Just like when you're building a house, you have to have some kind of foundation to build on. This is the foundation, is going to be a ray. Now, what we're going to do with that ray, first we're going to get a compass. I'm going to set the center of the compass on the original angle and just bring the radius out here. Don't want to come out past the smallest ray, but about there. So I've got this ray that's kind of short. I wouldn't want to come past that. But there we go. I've got my radius set out here, and I'm just going to make an arc that goes across both of these rays, like that. Okay. Now I'm going to take my radius, my center here, and I'm going to move it down to this ray. So I did not change the radius. It's still just as big a circle as it was before. I've just moved my center from the vertex of our angle to the end point of the ray. And now I'm going to draw this arc over here. So make it a little bit bigger. Just make sure it's at least big enough. So I always make it bigger than I think it needs to be, just to be sure. Okay. Now, what this does is this gets me a point that is the same distance away from the vertex, right? And so now I'm going to take my center, put it on one of these intersections, and put the radius on the other. Okay? And we used this in the previous video to measure distance, make sure the length of those segments here was the same as the length of the segment over there, right? That's what this is going to do. So I'm going to mark it there, then I'm going to bring it over here, and I'm going to make that same little mark right there going across it. Okay? And so now I know that this distance is the same as this distance. Now, why did I have to make that first angle, that first arc? Well, because angles get wider as they move out. So if I measured at this distance, they'd be closer together. This is to make sure that they are this distance at that distance from the vertex. So now I need a ray. Click on P prime, come up through that intersection, and there it is. Okay, you're looking, wait, but that one doesn't look like this other one. Well, no, that's because, remember, angles go on forever. In order for two angles to be congruent, they have to have the same measure. They have to be open to the same amount, okay? This is open the same amount. It's just that it's longer lines there, longer rays that we can see, and so it looks different, okay? But it's still open to the same amount. We know that because at this distance from the vertex, it's open at the same amount. Okay? And let's submit our answer to make sure we are correct. Are we sure? Yes, we're sure. And we get a lovely little check mark. All right? So, that's how we do that. Now that we have made congruent angles, we are going to construct an angle bisector. So what we're going to do, just like with the segment, we need to cut this segment in half, just like we did with the perpendicular bisectors. And the process is very similar, right? If you remember on the segment, what we did is we made two arcs above and below, and then we connected them, right there in the middle. We're going to do the same thing, but first we have to get our 2 points for our 2 endpoints, as it were. So, same thing we did on the first one. We're going to put our center at the vertex, and then we're going to set the radius out here somewhere. All right, just don't go past it because then we don't know where exactly we're going to be. So make sure that the radius will intersect both sides of the angle. And we're going to make an arc. Now actually all we really need is an arc here and an arc there. It's really all we need. If you want to make the arc go all the way around, that's fine. You're allowed to do that. It's okay. But all we really need is these two intersections. Okay? Now, those two intersections are going to act like the endpoints of our segment when we did the segment bisector. So we're going to take the center of our compass, put it right there on one of these intersections, and we're going to set the radius to be more than halfway to the other intersection. All right, so out here is definitely more than half. Over here, we're cutting it close. Maybe we shouldn't do it there. All right, so I don't want to put it here, so we're going to put it over here. I mean, I could come all the way out here. That's definitely more than halfway. It's gone all the way past the other intersection. But we'll put it over here. That's more than halfway, so that's good enough. All right, and now we're going to draw an arc out here. Unlike with the segments, I don't need to draw that second one because I have the vertex as being my second point. So I don't need to draw the arc going all the way down. All right, so now I've marked it on this endpoint, this intersection here, and I move it over to the other intersection, and here's where they intersect. All right. And it's very important that you have that radius set to be more than halfway across, because if the radius is less than half of the distance, if I made it down here, and I drew an arc here, and then I drew an arc over here, you'll notice my arcs don't intersect, so that doesn't work, right? Which is why you have to have that radius as more than halfway, right? That way the arcs intersect there. All right, and now we are going to draw a thing. Do they want it to be a ray? They want it to be a ray, not a segment. So we're going to use a ray, not a line. Start at the vertex and go through that intersection there. All right, and now we have the angle bisector. Okay, all right, and let's submit it. Make sure we got it right. And there it is. We did it right. And one good thing about the Delta Math while you're in this is you can go through this step by step on how to do it, and it will show you that as well. All right, so there's that. All right, so that is angle constructions, how to copy an angle, make two congruent angles. Remember, on congruent angles, that means that they are open to the same degree. They're open the same amount. And that's going to be a different distance depending on how close you are to the vertex, but it will always be the same angle. All right? All right. And how to construct an angle bisector like that. Hopefully you found that useful. I will see you in the next video.